Welcome into the Bullpen, ESPN Radio 97.5, 92.5. It's me, Brian McDonald, Cam Smith, our man John Belmer behind the glass. And Cam, you're in a much more favorable microphone position, so
Yes.
congratulations to that.
Thank you.
No Sean Mapes today. Sean is, I'll let him tell his own story, but just quick summary. He's decided to take a little step back, at least for a little while. He'll join us probably once a month, but no Sean Mapes today. But you still have the three of us, and you can find us on Twitter. I'm at Sack by BMAC. Cam is at Clutch City Cam, and Johnny is at Third Coast Johnny. John, I don't know if you heard Cam saying this right before he went on the air, but Cam, complained to us when he came in. It's like, man, I didn't have time to get my food. He missed the window for breakfast at the Greek place down the street, so he didn't get his breakfast sandwich. So I'm asking him if he's going to be okay. I'm worried about it. He looked a little famished. He said, "Oh yeah, I got some snacks." So I asked him, "Oh, okay, what'd you bring?" He's like, "Yogurt, banana, raw sausage," and I'm like, "Wait, hold on, what?" Because he apparently is good. Thought about cooking sausage up here. And as Johnny, as you know, we don't have a grill, we don't have a stove. Dude was going to microwave raw sausage in our dirty ass microwave.
That microwave's sketchy, bro. I don't know.
What are you doing, Cam?
First off, it was a morning thought as I was rushing.
Well, it's not just a thought. You have it here.
I do have it here in preparation that I don't have time because I'm going to be here until 9 o'clock at night. So if I don't have time to get food, I was like, worst case scenario, I
got this raw sausage.
I put this raw sausage in some Tupperware and microwave it. But the more I think about it, there's no way I'm going to actually.
Worst case scenario should be spending like $20 for Uber Eats, not
not even Uber Eats. We got the conservatory downstairs.
That's true too. Yeah. There's plenty of food
Fact.
right below
plenty
us.
of food. Great food downstairs.
Yes.
They got great.
I was just giving myself options to snack on throughout the day.
I can't imagine where I would rank microwaving raw sausage in Tupperware in a dirty microwave at work. Where that would rank on my list of options.
Desperate.
It ranks on as desperate.
Desperate.
Okay. All right. Let's try this on for a transition here. Great the transition, Johnny. Speaking of desperation, the Texans were desperate to get wide receiver help. And after the news of Christian Kirk being released by the Jaguars, the Texans said, "Nah, we'll trade you a seventh, and we'll go ahead and take Christian Kirk off your hands."
B minus.
B minus? All right, I'll take that. Hey, B's get degrees, man. I'll take it. Certainly, I got through high school with. Actually, got through high school C's. Let's be real. I'm in radio. But Christian Kirk, 1 year left on his contract. He will be an unrestricted free agent after the 2025 season. About $16 million on his contract. I think it's like 16.2 or 16.5 for this season. So less than they're paying Stephon Diggs. But what are your overall thoughts, Cam, when you saw the news that the Texans have made the trade of a 7th round pick for Christian Kirk?
I mean, I liked it. Obviously, we all know that Christian Kirk is not going to be 1, and he's most likely not going to be a 2.
No, he doesn't have to be the 1, obviously.
Yeah, but he's a very serviceable 3. I know that he's had a few injury problems the last few years, but when he can stay healthy, he's been relatively productive. I think his 17-game average, if he was to obviously play all 17 games, would be just below 1,000 yards a season and right around 5 touchdowns, which if you're getting that out of your 2/3, that's pretty good. And he only cost a 7th. So
yeah, you gave up nothing. It's basically the same deal that brought you Joe Mixon the year prior. Like, he was also someone that the Bengals had announced they were going to cut, and Texans said, "Not so fast, my friend."
Yeah.
Corso style, and traded them a 7th. So you're right. Like, he's been a guy. He's only started I think it was 19 games the last 2 seasons, because he had a groin tear that cost him 5 games in 2023, and then last year he broke his shoulder clavicle. That cost him 9 games to end his 2024 season. So he's a guy that I think that comes into this year where, like, if he gives you 12, 13 games, you're like, okay, cool. Like I don't think you can reasonably expect, 15, 16, 17 games. But when he's been healthy, like you said, he's been productive. 2021, while he was still with the Cardinals, he went 77 catches for 982 yards, 5 touchdowns. And then 2022, his best year, first year in Jacksonville, he had 84 catches for 1,100 yards and 8 touchdowns. So I think he is a guy that's capable of being a little bit above a league average wide receiver 2. And so I think you look at the Texans wide receiver room now. Nico Collins is clearly your 1. I think Christian Kirk, for this year at least, see if they talk about a re-signing like they did with Joe Mixon. I think he's a pretty serviceable too when he's healthy. And then maybe you look at your third wide receiver as someone you get in the draft, and then John Mechie and Xavier Hutchinson are your 4 and 5, which I think is where they needed to be. Like I was worried about the Texans wide receiver room when it was Nico Collins, and then the only thing else he had under contract was Xavier Hutchinson and John Mechie. So I guess the question to both of you is: do you feel like they've now? Obviously, depending upon what they do in the draft, but do you feel like they fixed their wide receiver room going into next season?
I don't think they necessarily fixed it, but I mean they definitely closed the gap on it. I mean, I don't think that they were willing to wait going into the draft, possibly not signing another big free agent wide receiver, literally going into the draft with just Nico Collins. Like, because you're going to have to replace Diggs. You're obviously going to have to replace Tank. So, I mean, this receiver core is depleted. And I think that they just didn't want to risk not signing a name before going into the draft, which is why I think they pulled the trigger on Christian Kirk. And not to mention, he's also a Texas guy. So it kind of makes
Yeah,
sense.
play at Texas A&M.
Yeah. So I think it'll be a good fit.
Johnny, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm with both of y'all. I think this is, especially for a 7, a steal. Right, you get Joe Mixon last year for this, and then now Christian Kirk. I think Nick Caserio's a little bit on fire with those 7th-round picks. But here's what I love about this is I agree with you, B Mac. Like, okay, last year when the Texans went and took a shot at Deontay Johnson, there were people thinking, okay, if he can. Like show out, maybe he can become that number two guy behind Nico. I think by punting on him and going with Christian Kirk, you essentially get something similar here for a 7th-round pick, and I think somebody that can take some pressure off of, like when teams are trying to take Nico out of the game, Stroud's going to have a target that he can throw to that's fast, that can beat his guy, and I think that is a huge plus for the Texans. But you didn't. I noticed Tank was not mentioned there. Amongst receivers here. I know he's hurt, but
he's not going to play this season.
No, but he is a part of the team in the future going forward. I don't want to forget that he exists.
Yeah, I mean, I hear you. I mean, I feel like Tank's, and I know I'm sitting next to a UH guy. I feel like Tank's career is just like officially cursed at this point. I don't know what sort of burial ground his career started on top of, but it feels like between the asked to being an inline blocker down near the goal line, and then some random ass wide receiver I had never heard of running the same route as him and taking him out during the Chiefs game this last season. I don't know, because like you're right. Like I think he misses all this season, and the injury's so severe. Like you don't really know what type of player, in my opinion, he'll be when he gets back. It wasn't just an ACL; it was everything, including his damn kneecap. And when he does get back, let's say he misses all of 2025. I think that's a given. Whatever form he shows up in 2026 will be the last year of his contract, because he was a 3rd-round pick. So they don't have that 5th year as part of the rookie contract. That'll be his final year. And that's a lot to ask. I mean, maybe that means the Texans can get him back on the cheap, but that's a lot to ask for a guy coming back from a serious injury as he did, to then have to go out and be in a contract year and prove it. Like, I mean, I don't know. I'm not saying his career's over, but I'm not optimistic about Tank Dell going forward.
That's fair.
Yeah, and I mean, we kind of saw this with Mechie. You know, they knew his situation, so I think they were okay with kind of playing maybe like the long game, letting him see what he can do when he comes back. I think they might try and do that with Tank. The only problem is Tank has been shot and has had 2
Yeah, we didn't even mention that he got
shot in 2 major injuries.
That's the least amount of all the things that's happened to him. Like, this is a crazy thing to say out loud, but being shot might be the least problematic thing for his future out of everything.
Which is crazy. And the thing is yeah, even if he comes back in 2026, I find it very hard to believe that they're just going to throw him back out there for the majority of the plays. Like
you can't depend on him.
Yeah, he's brittle. He's had 2 major leg injuries. Like, it just, if you can bring him back on the cheap, cool. But like, what are you really going to get out of him if you're worried about pushing him 100%? So I think this is just a really weird kind of situation that they're going to find themselves in. But if Stroud is still here, which he most likely is going to be, we know that Tank is his guy.
He better be.
Yeah, they'll pay him.
Yeah. So I think Tank will be back for another deal, but I think it's going to have to definitely be a very team-friendly one.
And I think you're right in that, like, we saw CJ's reaction when Tank got hurt.
Oh, yeah.
He was brought to tears. We know how close they are. The podcast tour that CJ went on, Tank was there with basically all of them. And I mean, the story and the legend goes that CJ was, going to bat for Tank when the Texans were thinking about drafting him. So I could see all that factored in the relationship being from Houston and all that. That Tank maybe decides to come back on a team friendly deal. But I think that's makes circling back to Christian Kirk. I think that's what makes going after a veteran like him so important, because you look at this wide receiver room, and the only thing you really have guaranteed, not even like really, like the only thing you have guaranteed over the next couple of years is Nico. That's
Yeah.
it. Like, so I think, and we'll see if they restructure, because remember, Joe Mixon was also in the final year of his deal when they brought him in, and they decided to add a couple more years on top. Christian Kirk, I believe, is 28, so he's certainly, if healthy, and I feel good about his injuries, because I mean, when it's a broken bone like his clavicle, I'm not as worried about it like the Tank injury,
Yeah.
right? We're talking about ligaments involved. So if Christian Kirk is healthy, maybe extend him, and you're able to bridge that gap. So not only this year, but going in years forward, you're not desperate. You're not in that desperate spot for wide receiver, because I think that was part of why it was so important to get Christian Kirk now. Is I would hate for them to go into the draft with everyone drafting around them going, oh well, they're going to go for a wide receiver.
Yeah.
And now if we need a wide receiver, and the Texans are picking 25, where are we trading up to? We're trading up to 24 to jump in front of them. So
Yeah.
I always think it's good to put yourself in a situation where your needs don't look desperate. That way you have flexibility and some surprise there with the teams around you, as far as being able to execute your draft plan.
Well, and let's not forget, I mean, the reason why Casario pulled this off like the Mixon trade is because he knew that if Kirk hit free agency, there would be a lot of teams going after
And he
Christian
might not
Kirk.
have picked you. Yeah.
Yeah, and so this is a way that you're able to get a guy in that is from Texas. Um, it seems like he wants to be here. So yeah, I
I
think
mean,
it's
it
a
would
good
make
move.
sense. I mean,
Yeah,
College Station's 2 hours away.
yeah,
So I mean, I would definitely see. I don't know if he would have picked the Texans had he been an unrestricted free agent, but I think they would have been, on the list.
Oh,
He
yeah.
would at least talk to him. But yeah, why not for the cost of a seventh round pick? Are you kidding me? Let's take out all what ifs from this scenario. Let's just make sure we have Christian Kirk, because I think if Nick Casario from this point forward never wants to make a seventh round draft pick again, instead of that, every year he just goes and picks up a free agent that's about to be cut, sign me up.
yeah.
Like, because what are you getting from a guy you drafted in the seventh round? I know everyone's going to go, oh, Tom Brady. Well, 6th round pick for one, but two, like that's 1 in a million.
Yeah, and
Like the average 7th round pick doesn't even make the roster, much less make an impact.
exactly, and arguably Kirk's 2 best seasons came with Jacksonville, and I think Trevor Lawrence is a more comparable quarterback to CJ Stroud. When Kirk was in Arizona, obviously Kyler
He had
Murray's very
Kyler. He had a good
talented,
year with Kyler.
but Kyler is very different than CJ Stroud and Trevor Lawrence. Very much out of
Pocket
the
versus
pocket,
mobile.
just
Yeah.
just running all over the place. And so maybe this will be a better fit for Christian Kirk anyways than Arizona.
Well, I think I wouldn't expect a massive uptick in his production, but I do think this is the best quarterback he's played with.
Yeah.
I mean, so anyway, all right. There's some more. We're gonna get into the more of the wide receiver news as it regards to the Texans. Like they could obviously had chances at guys like Devontae, DK, Debo, and Shaq Mason's cut to make room on for salary cap. So we'll talk about that and the state of the offensive line on the other side of the break. ESPN Radio 97.5, 92.5. If you want to get in the conversation, give us a call or a text on the HRP listener line. Talking Texans now. Astros coming up later. 1 o'clock, we're going to talk about this NBA media drama, and of course, Mount Rushmore +1 at 1:30. So give us a call or text again. HRP listener line 713-780-3776. Bullpen will be back in a couple minutes. Don't go anywhere.
Broadcasting live from the Veritex Community Bank Studios, it's the Bullpen on ESPN 97.5 and 92.5.
His own tweet saying it's a joke. We're just having fun.
It's hilarious.
ESPN Radio 97.5, 92.5. Cam and I guess part of that might have been caught on air there, but Cam and I were just talking about JJ Watt continuing to troll people over the possible return to the NFL playing for the Bengals, which I don't know where you'll put that on the likelihood scale. I'll put it at about a 0.5%. Like, because he'd had the thing where, if our goalie doesn't give up any goals the rest of the season, and the dude didn't give up any goals for like 13 straight games, so incredible run by that goalie, but he finally gave up a goal, so okay, JJ's not coming back, not that he ever was. But now, after his team, Burnley, I think it's Burnley, scored 4 goals in a game, he's now tweeted, if we score 4 goals in every game, I'll come back and play. So he's JJ fully trolling NFL fans, specifically the fans of the Bengals.
Well, the Bengals need him now.
I think they needed him before. They could use JJ when he's 50 and got one good leg. I mean, let's be real. That defense was straight trash last year. All right. ESPN Radio 97.5, 92.5. Welcome back into the Bullpen. Brian McDonald, Cam Smith, and John Bilmer here with you again. If you want to join in the conversation, hit us up on the HRMP listener line. Text or call 713-780-3776. We spent last segment talking about Christian Kirk coming to the Texans, whether or not we feel like that fixed the wide receiver room. And there's been a lot of, and continues to be a lot of wide receivers available kind of the merry-go-round that is the NFL offseason, which the legal tampering period, which the worst name in sports, starts on Monday. So there's going to be a lot of wide receivers on the move. We already had one with Deebo Samuel getting traded to the Commanders for a 5th-round pick. Obviously, we know DK Metcalf wants out. Looks like the Seahawks are going to trade him. We were kicking around on the on the Killer Bees the other day because I think people expect him to go to the Packers, and I'm not just saying this because you're sitting next to me, Cam. I think he ends up with the Chargers.
DK?
Yeah, I think he does because they've been clearing salary cap. They cut Joey Bosa. Khalil Mack's not re-signed yet, and Ladd McConkey's great, but maybe he's more of a slot natural. Now you can have DK as your true alpha on the outside. What would you think if the Chargers traded? Because the going price apparently is the 1st and the 3rd. Would you be for that?
No.
Too much?
No.
Okay. What's your limit? What's your cutoff?
So if it wasn't for the money that he's asking for,
because he wants $30 million a year,
I would be more open to trading a 1 and a 3. But because he wants over $30 million a year, a 1 and a 3 is just extreme. So I'm willing to do up to like a 2nd-round pick or maybe a 3rd-round pick and throw in Quentin Johnston to get DK, because apparently Seattle actually had interest in Quentin 3 years ago when he got drafted.
Okay.
And we're talking about teams that need receivers. I mean, hell, Seattle released Tyler Lockett. They're trying to trade DK. So all they have is Jackson Smith and Jimba. Like,
who's really good, but they definitely need another receiver.
Yeah, especially with not knowing who their quarterback is going to be.
That's the other thing. Now Geno Smith ends up, if you didn't see the news last night, he got traded for a 3rd-round pick to the Raiders.
So I definitely think the odds are still high that the Chargers sign him. I think that he would be a great compliment to Ladd. It would kind of bring back those days of Keenan Allen and Mike Williams when he could stay healthy, because Keenan's obviously a really good slot guy, and Mike Williams was.
Keenan might even be returning. That's been rumored.
For a cheap deal, if Keenan is your 3, then I'm okay with it. And then not to mention, the Chargers released Gus Edwards, which now they have almost $99 million in cap space. So they
plenty of room for DK.
Plenty
of room for DK. I think the Chargers make that move. We'll see what ends up happening there. But let's go through some of these other wide receivers that could have been available to the Texans before they decided to go with Christian Kirk, because by all accounts, they're obviously going to clear up some cap room, and did yesterday with the release of Shaq Mason. They'll probably restructure a few more guys. But I think because of what they're paying Christian Kirk, which is like $16.5 million, they're done at the top or middle level of the market for wide receiver. Obviously, they still need to fix offensive line, especially interior. I think they have some interior defensive line depth they need to look at. And this is a team that was, before the Shaq Mason release, I believe about $500,000 over the cap.
Okay.
So Maybe they go out and do another Robert Woods 1 year, $5 million sort of contract for whatever the 2025 version of Robert Woods is. But they're done at the top of the market, a wide receiver. They add to this room. It's either extremely cheap veteran, like $5 million or less, or it's somebody in the draft. So these names we're about to say completely off the table. So setting the table there. Let's start with Davante Adams, because this comment you're about to hear came from about a year ago, where he was on a podcast and talked about quarterbacks he'd like to play with.
What about CJ Stroud? What about the other young buck?
Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry. That he may be number one. I don't know.
Yeah, CJ Stroud is on.
Stroud. That was somebody I was campaigning for coming out. So I was really, I won't say I was anti-rookie, but I was not, pro rookie across the board. It wasn't just get somebody young, in here. It was really, that was the guy that I felt strongly about, and he felt the same way. I know I've seen a couple of videos where they had asked him who he'd like to throw to coming in the league, and he said me. And I actually got to kick it with him at Michael Rubin's all-white party out there in the Hamptons, and we kicked it for probably like literally 8 hours. And dude is solid. Like, I've never been around a dude that young coming in that, that's that mature, other than probably Trey Tucker. Like those two dudes, probably two of the most mature rookies that I've been around.
So Davante Adams, high praise. First off, they hung out for 8 hours.
I like how you name drop too.
Yeah.
All white party.
Yeah, the all white party there in the Hamptons. Like, okay, can't relate to that. Never been to. You guys ever been to the all white party in the Hamptons? I don't. Johnny Belmer strikes me as the guy that's been to the all white party in the Hamptons.
I wish.
I've been to the one in the Heights.
You went? Oh, you went to one in the Heights?
Well, the Heights, the little festival that they throw every year, the White Linen Night.
Oh, you've been?
I've been there once or twice.
Okay, how was it? Is that your sort of scene? That's your sort of vibe?
I mean, it's literally like going every other night to the Heights, except for the theme is all white.
Except for you're far more likely to get your clothes dirty because it's all white. So Davante Adams apparently loves CJ. And again, important to note that was a year ago. So I don't think his opinion has changed all that much, even though CJ did have a down year compared to his rookie season. But clearly Davante Adams likes the way CJ's played, and maybe put CJ on the list of guys, or make the Texans on the list of teams he'd like to play for because of CJ. And I think Davante has a lot left. Obviously, the year started. I mean, he did have one pretty good game with the Raiders. Week 2, 9 for 110. But you see, once he got back with Aaron Rodgers, you look at his game log. I mean, every week it's 6, 5, 9, 9, 7, 5, 6 catches. He's got a game that went 9 for 198. I mean, the dude still has a lot left in the tank, so I think he could have been a good player. And unlike what they did for Christian Kirk, because he was released, wouldn't have cost you anything as far as draft capital, but the price tag probably would have been higher than $16 million. So how are you feeling about missing out on Davante Adams?
I mean, the door's not completely shut.
Oh, it's shut.
But
it's shut for this year at least.
And I know that he said he wants to play with CJ, but there was so much talk about how he wanted to return to the West Coast, which is where he played college. It's where it's played for his teams. And so it just, I mean, Davante with CJ would have been nice, but Davante is also, I mean, there's a lot of these receivers are getting up there in age, and he's
still balled out.
He's still the best.
Yeah,
one.
he's still a better player now, even 2 years older than Christian Kirk.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he's proven to be healthier.
But I mean, I'm not.
Sounds like you're not disappointed they missed out on Davante.
I'm not disappointed, but I'm also not like. I never really expected it to happen. So I don't really have like a feeling.
Like, you don't have any FOMO because I guess you never really believed it was a possibility.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, because I think that's fair. You mentioned the West Coast thing. Like we were breaking this down the other day because I think people were, clutching pearls and hand wringing like, oh my God, Davante. But when you think about what Davante would go to in free agency, one, I think like all free agents, and I don't blame anyone for this, get the bag. But one, he's going to go for money. And as we talked about earlier in the segment, the Texans don't have money. They're over the cap. So he's not going to be able to get the big payday here. Two, you mentioned West Coast. He wants to play on the West Coast, played at Fresno State. Obviously decided to go to the Raiders when they were still in Oakland. So he obviously wants to be on the West Coast. Obviously Houston Texans, not West Coast.
Nope.
And the other thing, so the Texans can't give him the money. Texans aren't the locale that he wants. Okay. What about chance to win a Super Bowl ring chase, because he doesn't have one yet? Well, I mean, I think the Texans are a playoff team, but they're certainly not at the top of the list as far as teams you'd want to go ring chase with. You'd ring chase with the Eagles, the Chiefs, the Bills, the Ravens. Like the Texans would be probably not top five. I don't think that's a controversial take. They're not a top five ring chase team. So I don't know what box other than, hey, like CJ Stroud, that the Texans will really check off for Devontae Adams.
Yeah, and also further to Devontae Adams, it's so weird to gauge where he's going to go because, like we just mentioned, he did say he wants to go to the West Coast, but he also wants to go to a contender. Well, there is no California team that is
The Niners.
I mean that.
Chargers.
I mean, I love the Chargers.
Chargers.
But
they were a playoff team.
They were a playoff team, but I still don't think well, I keep, obviously it's not Oakland anymore, but I don't think any of the West Coast teams are ready to win a championship this year. So I'm wondering where his head is like really at. Unless Rodgers, well, nope. I don't know.
I mean, Rodgers, the rumor was like he could have gone to the Raiders, but obviously
that's not happening
now. He could go to the Niners if he wants to back up Purdy, but they're not starting Rodgers over Purdy. So I don't know. I think if Devontae, if he's dead set, like it's got to be West Coast, it's got to be a team that can make the playoffs. It's really just the 49ers and the Chargers.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I say that Rams, obviously. But
yeah.
but I mean, I don't know I guess I'd have to look at the Rams' financial situation. Obviously, they're parting ways with Cooper Kupp, but Rams could make some sense too. I mean, you have another great wide receiver on the other side of you. Got a really good quarterback, even though he's up there in years with Matt Stafford. So there's three teams that kind of make some sense. So quickly, let's name off two other names. Just tell me if you regret the Texans missed out on it or not. But Debo and DK. Any regret there that the Texans went the route they did for Christian Kirk instead of pursuing either DK Metcalf or Debo Samuel?
Well, I think DK was going to be off the table no matter what,
because of the money,
the money and the picks that you have to give up, and then with Debo,
it was only a 5th round pick.
Only a 5th round pick, but we've seen the health concerns with the Texans wide receivers, and then you're gonna.
I mean, but they got Christian Kirk. I mean, Christian Kirk's
very true.
He only played 19 games out of 34 the last 2 years.
Very true. So I think Debo is probably the one that I think they missed out on with the highest possibility to get. The one that they missed out on the most is probably Debo.
Johnny, any wide receiver amongst this group you regret missing out on? Or in comparison to getting Christian Kirk?
Not necessarily. Devontae Adams a little bit, obviously, because he's Devontae Adams. But you have Nico Collins to throw to. So I mean, I don't necessarily. I don't know if Nico Collins is going to have the career that Adams has had, but he's sure on his way there. You've got that guy on your team, so I'm not really worried about missing out on any of these guys.
Really. And there's still wide receivers that we talked about in the mid range, the cheap range that are still free agents. I mean, they could still go after Darius Slayton. Hell, last year there was a good chance Keenan was going to get traded to the Texans, but the Chargers wanted a 1 round higher pick in return. So there's always Keenan out there. I mean, I know Marquise Brown is Hollywood Brown is injury prone, but he would be another cheap.
I would love Hollywood and actually like Slayton. I think outside of having to play with Daniel Jones, he's actually a pretty good wide receiver. Yeah. I think though, you're right in that they'll cost less than Kirk. They'll cost less than these other names we mentioned, but I still think it's going to price them out. Like, I mean, Tutu Atwell just got $10 million.
Yeah.
The reported market for Darius Slayton's being set around 12. And I just don't see with the Texans still having other holes to fill. And being even with so if they postmark Shaq Mason's cut, and we can get into this on the other side of the break, but if they postmark Shaq Mason's cut for post June 1, then they save $9 million, but you can't use that now.
Right.
So I mean, they wouldn't have that. So let's assume they do that. You're still right around being over the cap, like 500,000. Obviously, they'll restructure probably a few more guys. They've already restructured Nico and Azeez Al-Shaair this season. Apparently, Daniil Hunter's wanting a contract extension, so maybe you do something him where you give him in a couple extra years some more money, but it brings down the AAV to where it gives you some more salary cap room. But even with all that, especially if Shaq Mason's post June 1, because the difference between post June 1 and now is like $7 million extra, so I think you got to do that. I just don't think they would have room for a $10 million wide receiver.
No, I think the only one basically on this list that that they could get is either Keenan or Tyler Lockett, and I'm pretty sure Tyler Lockett is going to go to the Raiders to be reunited with
Pete Carroll. Yeah,
and
I would
Smith,
agree with
so.
that. That makes a lot of sense. All right, let's carry over one part of this Texans conversation with the cut of Shaq Mason, state of their offensive line, and then after that we'll get into the Astros and with Cam Smith here, we'll get into the Cam Smith hype. I mean, who's more well equipped to talk about Cam Smith hype than a guy named Cam Smith? ESPN Radio 97.5, 92.5. Bullpen will be back in a couple minutes.
This is the Bullpen on ESPN 97.5 and 92.5. Live from the Veritex Community Bank Studios. Here are the producers of ESPN 97.5 and 92.5.
Welcome back in, Bullpen, ESPN Radio 97.5, 92.5 here on a Saturday in the great city of Houston. Cam Smith, John Belmer alongside me, Brian McDonald. And if you want to get in on the conversation, call or text us on the HRP listener line, 713-780-3776, as a couple of people did. First off, we missed, I guess, because it looks like this news broke right as the show was starting, so we missed this. But Hollywood Brown, who we talked about in the last segment, has now resigned with the Chiefs for pretty much copy and paste the exact same contract he had last year, 1 year, $11 million. And Cam, you were telling me that this might be due to another Chiefs wide receiver getting in trouble.
Yeah, so Xavier Worthy back in trouble with the law. Apparently, he was arrested for like a domestic battery or domestic violence.
Been a rough few months for former Longhorns. Justin Tucker.
Yeah,
Jeez.
yeah,
Yikes.
and this one's bad. And Worthy's obviously, this is not his first time with a run in, so it definitely makes sense as to why the Chiefs were super quick to resign.
When you say like cream hunt bat, speaking of Chiefs, we don't have to get into levels of because obviously any level of that is bad. But
according to this report, he choked somebody out in his family.
Okay, that is really bad. That is really
bad.
Okay, well if that is, we'll see. Obviously, there's going to be a whole process with this, but he shouldn't play a game next year if that is true. Another text that came in on the HRP listener line from 0265. Michael Gallup is coming out of retirement. Should the Texans pick him up? I mean, he does fit the bill of what I talked about with the 2025 version of Robert Woods. And he's someone who's had, a good season or two in the past with the Cowboys. I think he's had at least one 1,000-yard season. So sure, like if he wants to come here on a 1 year, like $2.5 million contract, why not? I'm willing to throw that dart at the board, but my expectation would not be for Michael Gallup to come in and like make a difference at this point. Like, when's the last time he was relevant? 4 or 5 years ago?
I mean, it's crazy that he retired after only 6 seasons. But yeah, I mean, he hasn't played football in 2 years. I feel like this would
Yeah, I'm
almost
gonna
be
pull up his game. Go ahead. I'm gonna pull up his game page so I can figure out like when the last time he was actually good.
well, 2019 was his 1,000-yard season, and then 2020 he had 840 yards, and then every season after that he never topped 450. So this almost seems kind of like a Deontay Johnson move. Like
Well, okay. So I didn't realize this, but was that his rookie year when he had 1,100 yards?
his second year.
It was the second year. Okay. For some reason, this page I'm looking at has that as being the first year listed for him. Like you said, 843 the year after in the COVID year of 2020. So the last time he was relevant, COVID was still running wild.
Yeah.
So it's been a long time since Michael Gallup. We're talking 2021, 22, 23, and then he wasn't even in the league in 24. So 4 seasons have gone by since he was last a relevant player. Again, if it's a 1 year, 2 million, whatever. I'll throw the dart at the wall. Let's see what sticks. But I would not be willing to do anything significant with him, and I wouldn't expect any great production out of him.
Yeah, I mean, there is no pressure to pay this guy. So you offer him something super cheap. If he says no, he goes to somewhere else. Like
Yeah,
there's
exactly.
no
You move on.
You're not losing out on absolutely anything if you don't get him.
All right, so let's get to the other bit of Texans news. And if you have thoughts, again, like the last person who texted in, call or text us on the HRMP listener line 713-780-3776. But the other big Texans news this week, besides Christian Kirk, it came the day after, I guess, in the part to make room for guys like Christian Kirk and make room for the upcoming draft class. But right guard Shaq Mason, who the Texans traded for a few years ago from the Patriots, has been cut. I don't know if there's been official news yet, if it'll be a post June 1 designation or if he's cut now, but it makes no sense for not to be a June 1st because you save a little over $9 million.
Yeah.
If it's post June 1, where if it's now, you save a little over $2 million. So I can't imagine Nick Caserio would turn down an extra $7 million. So let's just say, even if it's not official, it is a June 1st cut. But the thing to talk about going forward for the Texans is, obviously where their offensive line is. I think right now, if they had to go and play a game tomorrow, your offensive line is probably Laramie Tunsil at left tackle, Titus Howard at left guard. Your center right guard in some combo is Jarrett Patterson, Juice Scruggs. I'm not sure how they would flip them. And your right tackle is the second round pick from a year ago out of Notre Dame, Blake Fisher, who did play a little bit last year, but was not a full-time starter. That obviously is not a line I hope they go into the season with because it was a line that got brutalized. But I'm willing to, I guess, hold out some hope that the blame goes on Bobby Slowick and Chris Strouser, who they both fired and now have hired a new play caller and obviously promoted Popovich to be their new offensive line coach. But if you had to pick one spot, again, Tunsil, Howard, Juice and Jarrett, and some center right guard combo, and then Blake Fisher at right tackle. If you had to pick one spot, who are you replacing?
Probably. Well, so the Texans' official depth chart is very close to what you said. Tunsil, Howard, Patterson. They have Kendrick Green at right guard, and then at right tackle.
But
it's Blake Fisher.
I don't know if they've updated their depth chart. That's
well,
probably
there's no
still
more.
going off.
There's no Shaq on here.
Okay, maybe I guess they have. Okay, I wouldn't have expected that to have been updated.
He was on there last night, so they must have just updated it.
I think it doesn't matter if it's left guard or right guard. I think guard is what you have to fill in next. I mean, you already have plenty of tackles. I mean, Blake Fisher's a tackle. Tunsil's obviously a tackle. Howard's obviously a tackle that they're having to play at guard because the guard's position is so inconsistent that for me it's either Kendrick Green or Kenyon Green. One of the Greens is
I mean, go. I would hope they're not playing to play either, and that the two Greens are depth behind Patterson and Scruggs, who I think outplayed those guys. I can't imagine. Like, I know he's a former first-round pick. His rookie year, he actually was pretty decent in the run blocking game, but obviously has just been a disaster as a pass blocker. I guess I would allow for some minuscule amount of hope that he could develop under a new offensive line coach and a new offensive play caller in Nick Caley. But I'm not going into the season even penciling him in as a starter. Like he would have to start as a backup and work his way up. But I'm with you. Like the one place I'm replacing is guard,
Yep.
and then I'm letting Jarrett Patterson and Juice Scruggs fight it out for center, and
Yep.
best man win. And I probably would lean Jarrett Patterson. He was certainly the offensive line played better once he was moved to center instead of Juice, but I would allow obviously for a camp battle to pursue there. But the reason I asked the one is because of what we talked about with adding Christian Kirk to the roster, the limited amount of cap space, even with the Shaq Mesa cut. This dream that I think a lot of us had of replacing 2, maybe even 3 offensive linemen, I think is kind of dead. Like, unless they just decide to go first round, second round, third round offensive line, which I don't think they'll do,
No.
then I think the idea of a complete overhaul for the offensive line is probably going to look like replacing one starter. So I think that's
Yeah.
what we're looking at. Like, which starter is it? Take your choice, because they're not going to be able to overhaul the entire offensive line.
No, and there's not, like, going through the list of top free agents, there's no.
And Trey Smith got taken off right away because the Chiefs franchise tagged him.
Yeah, and we've seen some guards be, have been traded
Joe Tooney.
the last like couple weeks, but like even looking at this free agent list, like the guard position is like so thin. I think the best
Who are the
one.
top couple names you're looking at, or according to that list?
So according to this list, the top guard is going to be Will Fries, and
Okay.
he is projected to get something around 4 years, 60 million, which I don't think
The
they're.
Texans are out. They
No.
can't afford it. Like Kevin Zietler's been a name. Does it have a projection for him?
Kevin Zietler's up there. Now he's a little older, but he might fit that spot because his is projected about 1 year, $9 million.
Okay,
So,
that's something. There you go. I think that is and it's funny that we mentioned Zietler. One, he was a part of a great offensive line in Detroit, so there's some pedigree there. He's played really well. And I don't know if you remember the thing CJ did a year ago with Micah Parsons, where they picked like their starting 11 on, like CJ picked an offense,
Yeah.
Micah picked the defense, and they kind of talked about the hypothetical battle they would have. And CJ picked Kevin Zeitler.
Zietler, yeah.
I don't remember how you pronounce it, but he picked him as one of his guards for his hypothetical offensive team. So,
Well, and that Detroit offensive line has been
it's been great.
Super
Best offensive
good
line of football.
the last couple years.
That or the Eagles. They're
Yeah.
1-2.
So that would be a good addition. And then I think I think the money per year is there for the Texans. It just Tevin Jenkins from the Bears, he's 26. He's projected 3 years, 30 million. So that's
I think I think your best case scenario, if you really want to get as close as you can to overhauling the offensive line, is I think the Texans can do enough creatively with restructuring to get cap room to get to the 1 year, $9 million for Kevin Zeitler, or however you pronounce his name, and then you draft a rookie in the first 3 rounds.
Yeah.
To come in as either a competition for the center, like with Scruggs or Jarrett Patterson, or at least be depth. That's probably the most you can do with the offensive line.
Yeah.
So anyway, all right. We got to get out. We went a little longer with the Texans I anticipated. On the other side of the break, we got to talk about Cam Smith. No, not that Cam Smith. The Astros Cam Smith. I mean, no offense.
My twin.
No offense. The far superior Cam Smith. I don't think you mind me saying that, right?
Athletically.
Okay. All right. I'll give you that. I'll give you that. Maybe they're, grilling sausage in a microwave at work. You might be the superior Cam
I'd
Smith.
crush it.
ESPN Radio 97.5 and 92.5.
Broadcasting live from the Veritex Community Bank Studios, it's the Bullpen on ESPN 97.5 and 92.5.
ESPN Radio 97.5, 92.5. Welcome back into the Bullpen. Getting to some Astros now. If you have thoughts or opinions you want to share with us, get into the conversation on either Cam Smith for the Astros, not this Cam Smith. No one wants to talk about him. Or Lance McCullers Jr. Give us a call or a text on the HRMP listener line, 713-780-3776. So, Cam, let's talk about Cam. It's going to get really confusing, Johnny. My head might explode before the segment's over. Actually, I'm kind of hoping Cam Smith doesn't make it, so it's less confusing on Saturdays. Is that selfish? Is that selfish?
Yeah, it's selfish.
That's probably selfish.
Yeah.
All right. I kid. I do want Cam Smith to make it, the baseball player. Cam Smith hype. Let's get into the Cam Smith hype. There's been a lot of people. I mean, you never know how much it is. The quote unquote vocal people on Twitter are probably just, an overall minority of the overall fan base, but there's been a lot of people pretty vocal to see Cam Smith make the Astros opening day roster. And I totally get it because the dude has been unreal. So far in spring, he's hitting 636. 636 he's hitting. Now, that's only an 11 at bats, so but 7 out of 11, including 2 home runs, a triple. And 11 at bats, he has 4 walks. So 15 plate appearances, 4 walks, which is crazy. And then again, he's played 6 games, has 7 RBI. So more RBI than games played. He's been unreal. But I think we have to, just pump the brakes a little bit, realize where this kid is at in his development, and not rush things, because I get that he's been amazing. But one, spring training stats don't really matter that much. We've seen, remember Justin Dearden a couple years ago was unbelievable in spring. Obviously, nothing happened in his career. So spring training stats, while it's impressive what Cam Smith has done, don't really mean anything. And the kid was drafted last June. This is not someone who's been in the system or, the Cub system prior for, several years, moving his way up through the system. This is a guy who was drafted last June and has only played 5 games at the AA level or higher. That's it.
It's almost like Paul Skeens just shoof.
Yeah, well, and Paul Skeens went to the majors in less than a calendar year, I think. Yeah. And I think Cam Smith can get called up this year. But again, he's played 5 games in his life above the single A level. He got drafted last June. We're talking about, he's been great this spring, but it's 11 at bats. This is so quick to expect Cam Smith to be ready for major league pitching, which again, he's not really facing during spring training, because he's facing guys that won't make it. He's facing guys that are going to get sent down to the minors. And he's facing guys that, even if they're established, they might be working on stuff. They're not really going after him the way they would in a regular season game. So I'll John, Cam, tell me where you sit, but I think we need to pump the brakes on Cam Smith. Let him go down to AA to start the season in Corpus, and let's check in on him in like mid-May or June and talk about a summer call-up.
Yeah, obviously offensively, he's put up a ton of numbers. That was what was talked about when we first traded and got him. I think for me, honestly, one of the more impressive things is his walk to strikeout ratio.
Yeah, 4 walks and 15 plate appearances.
Yeah, and just 1 strikeout. But I'm with you. What we've seen so far is really good, but it's such a small sample size. And again, it's not against the most competitive parts of baseball yet. So I definitely think that he's going to get called up at some point this season. I don't think it's going to be opening day, but there's such a, I don't know, there's just so many players on this team where where do they fit in, that I think that's kind of why we won't. I think we have to see what other players do, like Paredes and stuff like that, that play similar like positions. So that's why I kind of think he's not going to get called up initially, but I definitely think that by the midway point of the year, he's going to be on this team.
And I think that's what you mentioned there with like some of the position part of it, like defensively. The other, like, even if you disagree with us and say, well, he should come up, because I hear the argument of, I would not keep Cam Smith down because I wanted to play a John Singleton or a Jake Myers,
yeah,
or who's the right fielder they picked up that was on the team last year? Not Hummel.
Cooper Hummel.
Yeah, whoever these
Ben
guys.
Gamble?
Huh?
You talking about Gamble?
Yes, Ben Gamble. Sorry, I don't know why I had Hummel in my mind. I would not let guys like Ben Gamble and Jake Myers or John Singleton, like all these back of the bench type players or poor offensive players that are probably starting, stand in the way of Cam Smith. Like I agree with that part of it, but what we talked about with the experience, extremely small sample size. I'm a little worried about that. I don't want to rush him. I don't want to have him come up and struggle and lose confidence. And the other part of it, like even if you disagree with that, just look what the Astros are telling us with what they're doing. If he was going to play, he was going to play right field, right? He's played 6 games, doesn't have a single play in the outfield. His entire playing has been at third base, which right now would be obviously Isak Paredes. We're like, okay, well maybe Isak could play second and Cam Smith plays third. Well, Isak has 0 games during spring training at second base. So I think the Astros are telling you by not playing Cam Smith in the outfield and not moving Isak to second base that Dubon's going to be your second baseman, Paredes is going to be your third baseman, and they're not going to throw Cam Smith in the outfield with 0 plays under his belt during spring training in the outfield. So I think we can write off Cam Smith as a possibility to break camp with the major league roster.
Yeah, I mean, and even if he and if you're grooming him to play in the outfield, you better start playing him.
Yeah,
in the outfield.
Like if the plan was okay, this kid hit 2 home runs like his first game. Let's fast track him. I mean, wouldn't you be playing him in the outfield? Like, I mean, they're not. Johnny, what do you think about this Cam Smith situation? Are you wanting to call him up right away, or are you more with on Cam and I's side?
Not a chance. No, I'm on your side. Not a chance he makes the opening day roster. Like you said, he hasn't played more than 5 games over Double A. Let him get some time at Sugarland. It's literally a 30-minute drive if you do decide later on in the season you want to give him some at bats at the major league level or whatever you decide that looks like, or you have some injuries and you want to bring him up. Whatever that looks like, he's right there at the AAA level. I think that's where he needs to be. That is good competition, consistent, like good, at least big league level pitching ish, right? And I think that's right where you want to develop him. Jordan spent how much time down there hitting bombs? That's what I'd like to see.
Yeah, I don't remember how much time he was there.
They were clamoring for them to call him up for months and months before they eventually did in that season. That's exactly how they should handle Cam Smith's development.
Well, and even more so, like if you try and make the argument of like, okay, he hasn't played in the field, so he's not ready for that. DH him. Well, no, because Jordan. So
and Altuve, like your DH is going to be Jordan or Altuve.
Yeah, there's like I said, he's obviously performed really well in a very limited time, but he's not ready. Like and you don't want to rush him, have him struggle, send him back down, do this whole flippy floppy.
Yeah, you don't want to yo-yo.
Send him back down. Like no, don't do that.
He needs to get consistent. Oh, the other thing, like if you called him up, okay, maybe he plays some in the outfield, maybe plays some in third base, but he's probably not playing every day, right? Because you're going to want to get looks. Hey, let's see if Chaz has recovered his previous form. Well, obviously, they're going to get Jake playing time because he's at least on the defensive side, a really good center fielder. Obviously, Isak is going to play. And it seems like we got good news on Christian Walker. So it seems like he will not miss much time if he misses any at all. So, like, if you brought him up, even if he breaks camp with the team, he's probably not getting regular everyday at bats. And for his development, again, 5 games above the single A level, he needs everyday consistent at bats. I think that's got to be. I mean, Johnny said AAA. I'd probably side on AA, but either way, I'm fine with that. But it needs to be consistent everyday at bats until you have an everyday spot for him on the major league roster. And I just don't see that as being a possibility to start the year. Let's quickly get into Lance McCullers. Johnny, if you can get the Lance McCullers audio ready. He threw 20 pitches to 3 Astros hitters last Saturday, a week ago. Jake Myers, Christian Walker, and John Singleton. Hit 94.7 on the gun. Earlier this spring, like when pitchers and catchers first reported, he was hitting like 89. So it's gone up. He's also throwing his curve, his sinker has changed. So he's hitting. I mean, if he could hit 94, he's back as far as velocity goes. He's throwing his other pitches. He's throwing to live hitters, which was the first this last Saturday, which that was the kind of the next step in his development. And everything, all the quotes you hear from Lance, I'll read one, and we'll hear from Joe Espada about Lance McCullers. But he said, today's a pretty good indication the arm can handle the workload, can handle the velo, McCullers said. I probably have a little bit more gas in there as I get going to be able to throw sliders with freedom and curveballs with freedom and not worry about extending fastballs each side of the plate and have my mind there versus having my mind on how's the elbow feeling. Today is a big step for me. So I'm not ready to say Lance McCullers is back because it's never about getting to this point. Is can he stay there? Can he throw 20 games for you? Can he recover in between starts? And one live batting session for 20 pitches doesn't prove that. So I'm not willing to get excited yet for Lance, but he is so far for the part of the recovery he's in is checking all the boxes. Let's hear from Joe Espada on Lance McCullers Jr. and his excitement for Lance's possible return.
I keep saying he's going to pitch some big games for us. He's super close. He hasn't pitched in 2 years, so we need him to go and pitch some innings in AAA and build up that way. But you'll see him pitch some games here in spring training. He's close. His stuff looks good.
His haircut looks good.
His mindset, his mindset his mindset is in the right play. I'm excited about him, man. I really am. This guy's pitched one of the biggest games for us. I remember 17 being on the other side, watching him start against one of those big games against the Yankees. So it's in him. Just got to stay healthy.
Just got to stay healthy. So he's hitting 94, Cam. He's throwing against live batters. The full repertoire's there. He's not sore. You hear Joe Espada say he's going to pitch in spring and he's going to pitch for us this year. Are you hyped? How you feeling? I think that was an indication right away.
Just about every year that I have with McCullers, I don't expect much.
Okay. If I put the over-under on 9.5 games he pitches in the regular season, which side are you on?
Okay, so game-wise, I'm comfortable going over.
Because the last time he pitched in a regular season was 8 games. That was 2022.
Yeah, I'm okay going over the over on 9.5 games, but that's nothing to get excited.
I mean, he was really.
about.
I mean, that's the other part of the equation. Not only can he get back, but can he be what he was? Because as Joe Espada mentioned, it's been 2 years. He last pitched in a game in Game 3 of the 22 World Series.
Yeah,
in a game where he wasn't good in that game either. But getting back period is one part of the question. The other question is is he still as good? Now he was good in those 8 starts in 2022. Like when he came back in August, his ERA was, I believe, below 3. It was I think high 2s. But it's a big question mark. Not only can you stay healthy, can you be there between, the throw 80 pitches in the game, recover in 4 days, and come back for that 5th day for the next start, but are you also as effective as you were in 2022? Johnny, what is your level of excitement for McCullers, and would you take the over/under of 9.5 games started this year?
I think I'd take the over on that reluctantly. I'm a bit more
reluctantly.
I'm a bit more optimistic this year. Obviously last year early on in camp, it was setback. I believe it was you already knew. There are lots of positive things being said. He does look good throwing off the mound. He seems to be confident and positive. So I think I will take a little bit of that, and I'll go a little over 9 just to be on the safe side here. But I think we'll get some Lance McCullers Jr. action for sure.
All right. So if I gave you, and we'll go to break after this, but if I gave you 1 to 10, 10 is just you're crazy hyped. Where's your hype level, Cam?
6.
Okay, that's more than I thought you would say, Johnny.
Yeah, that's higher than I thought he'd say. I was going to say 5.5, 6. So.
Yeah, I'm right about a 5 because I don't. It's great because like Johnny said, when he's tried to do this before, there's always been a setback by now. He's progressing beyond levels that he ever got to in previous off seasons. So I am starting to see the positive signs that maybe this one is real. But until he's actually pitching, even just in a spring training game against real hitters, not his teammates, and it's more than 20 pitches, and he could come back from that and do it again and again and again and repeat it, then I'm not going to up my level to a 7 or 8, but that's kind of where I'm at.
And it's not just the games. Okay, yeah, you pitch over 9.5 games, but are you pitching 5 innings a game? Is that all that we're?
They're going to kick glove them for
that's
sure.
What I'm saying. But that 5, averaging 5 innings, doesn't tell me that you're back. And then the quote where it's today's a pretty good indication the arm can handle the workload off of 20 pitches.
Yeah. Okay.
What?
You're right there. I do.
Yeah, but he said he's been on a pretty consistent routine of doing this over and over and over. So
I hear what you're saying, Cam, but and as Johnny's kind of saying there, you got to prove you can do 20 with no setback before you can do 40,
True.
before you can do 60. So again, it's
You got to work your way up.
baby steps with Lance, but we got to get out. We're a little bit over here. On the other side of the break, we got to get into some of this NBA media drama. Stephen A. Smith versus LeBron, Kendrick Perkins versus Charles Barkley. A lot of war of words going on in the NBA. None of it really about what's going on the court, just kind of the media members fighting with themselves, and one of the greatest of all times fighting with a media member. But that on the other side of the break, ESPN Radio 97.5, 92.5.
This is the Bullpen on ESPN 97.5 and 92.5. Live from the Veritex Community Bank Studios. Here are the producers of ESPN 97.5 and 92.5.
All right, we got to talk about some of this NBA drama. Kendrick Perkins versus Charles Barkley. We got LeBron confronting Stephen A. Smith on the court, not even coming on one of his many shows, but getting on the court. And if you want to join in on some of this drama with us, give us a call or a text on the HRMP listener line, 713-780-3776. Sorry. Coming up at 1:30, Mount Rushmore plus one. Of course, we'll end the show with the worst people in sports and what we love from sports this week. Thanks for joining us. And again, if you want to hit us up on HRMP list line, that's great. You can also hit up us on Twitter. Brian McDonald, and Matt Sack by BMAC. Cam Smith, not the Astros, Cam Smith is at Clutch City Cam, and Johnny Behind the Glass is at Third Coast Johnny. So let's start with Kendrick Perkins and Charles Barkley. Charles Barkley, obviously not one to hold back. If he feels you said something that's foolish and stupid, he's gonna call you out on it. And Kendrick Perkins, we'll hear his audio because Charles was responding to what he said. But Charles did not like what Kendrick Perkins had to say here in this clip.
The Los Angeles Lakers are saving the NBA. A month ago, let me ask you a question.
We're all dressed like we're going to church, so they're saving the NBA.
How excited were y'all a month ago before the Luka trade about the NBA final?
I mean, I saw headlines.
Always excited.
I saw headlines that said the NBA stole the Super Bowl because that was the headline that week.
So now y'all can honestly say that y'all more excited. Why? Because we could possibly get Boston versus Lakers with the superstar power.
I kind of get what Kendrick Perkins is saying. A finals with star power is usually better than a finals without star power. But the idea of if you're amongst the crowd who finds that the NBA product has gotten worse, whether it be the style of play, the whining like from guys like Luca to the refs, like whatever the reason why you think the NBA has gotten worse, them trading for Luca and pairing him with LeBron doesn't save the NBA. And Charles Barkley didn't hold back in this clip in his response to Kendrick Perkins the other night after that comment.
I saw a fool idiot on TV talking about the Lakers save the NBA.
Save the NBA?
Yeah. He's an idiot and a fool, but he know who he is. What's his name, Shaq?
Which one are you talking about?
Kendrick Perkins.
Oh.
He said the Lakers, first of all, the Lakers have had a great 2 weeks. He said the Lakers saved the NBA season. That's because them fools on the other network, which we're going to be working for next year, that's all they talk about. Let me tell y'all something.
Tell me something.
And first of all, I want all the smoke. I don't whistle when I walk by the graveyard or anything like that.
I don't whistle when I walk by the graveyard.
Right.
I like that.
Hey,
Man. I'm stealing that one.
The Lakers are doing great. Got a long way to go. But the reason the season's been going great for the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Oklahoma City Thunder. Y'all just want to talk about the Warriors and the Lakers. They're both doing great. Don't get me wrong. If I turn out to be wrong, I got no problem with that. But y'all are idiots because y'all talk about the Lakers and the Warriors all the time.
I mean, Charles.
I saw a fool idiot.
Yeah, you can play the fool idiot as much as you want, Johnny. I mean, one, Charles Barkley is a national treasure.
Absolutely.
He must be protected at all costs. I want to get past the comedy because it was comedy gold to hear him rip Kendrick Perkins as a fool idiot. But getting to what Charles actually said, he's 100% right. It's not that, quote unquote, the Lakers saved the NBA, which is a ridiculous statement. They didn't do anything for the style of play that has turned fans off for the other 29 teams in the league. It's just that ESPN is in the business of promoting the NBA because that's like their number. Now that they're getting out of Major League Baseball and they only have football on once a week for 4 months a year, like their number one, media rights thing is the NBA. They have them on twice a week, sometimes 3 or 4 times a week during the NBA season.
They got hockey back too, though, didn't they?
They have hockey back, but NBA obviously makes some more money. So the NBA, I think this is a product of, as Charles mentioned there, ESPN wants to mention the Lakers and the star power like the Warriors as much as possible. So I think I don't crush Kendrick Perkins for saying it because his job is to get views, to get clicks, to cause reaction, and going on TV and saying the Lakers saved the NBA is a way to get views and clicks and attention. He's not going to say that about a small market because the small market's not going to gather the reaction that saying that about an LA team is. But Charles also right. Like, it's not that the Lakers saved the NBA. It's just that's all you guys ever want to talk about.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, Cleveland, as Chuck said, Cleveland in Oklahoma City have had far better seasons. But if you turn on to ESPN any given day, are they talking about the Cavaliers and Thunder? No. They're talking about the Lakers and the Warriors. So Chuck is 100%. I get it from Kendrick's side. He's got to do his job to get reaction, talk about the biggest teams, sell it, say things that'll get feedback. But Chuck is right. ESPN has just become basically a Los Angeles Lakers LeBron James propaganda machine, and that's what this kind of came off as to me.
Yeah, and like to your point, I get where Perk is coming from. Like, yeah, okay, cool. Bring back the days of the Lakers versus Boston and all those those,
which would sell.
Yeah,
I'll say that like a Celtics Lakers finals this year would do good numbers.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But it's almost like the annoyance that we hear in like football with the Cowboys or baseball with like the Yankees.
100%.
Like, just because these great teams in the past having them be good again is not going to make. It might make for higher views, but it doesn't make for a better league, if that makes
100%.
If that makes sense.
It'll get probably more TV viewers, but it doesn't make the TV products better. Yeah. Like I completely agree with you. Like I get it kind of from both sides, but it does feel like I'm glad you brought up like the Cowboys and Yankees because that's kind of something guilty that ESPN is guilty of as well. That it's just like they take 32 in the case of the NFL or 30 in the case of the NBA. They take the entire league and kind of cut it down to like 4 or 5 teams that they're willing to talk about and completely ignore what the other teams are doing. And I think as Charles was indicating in that clip, he's just
Soft
pushing.
food idiot on.
You can play that as much as you want, Johnny. He's just pointing out I think the annoyance that a lot of us have is like if I want to tune into, a Stephen A. Smith show on a weekday, which I basically never do because of what has happened to it as Charles lay out. Like I don't need to hear Lakers, Yankees, Dallas Cowboys propaganda. Let's talk about the teams that are doing the best, and the teams that are doing the best are the Thunder and the Cavs.
Yeah, like you're hitting on major markets that don't need extra support to be major markets. Like if you want these leagues to grow, you have to talk about all the teams, not the ones that.
But they're not in the business of making the league grow. They're in the business of ESPN because and this is why I somewhat see what Kendrick was doing. Like if he goes out and talks about a small market, it's not going to get ESPN the attention as if he talked about New York or LA.
Yeah.
So that's a big part.
And to be fair, there are more Lakers fans out there than some of these small market teams have combined.
Exactly.
Like,
true.
So I completely get why Kendrick did. Like his employer will be happy that he went out and gave a hot take about a big market and it got reaction. I mean, today us talking about it with Charles Barkley, another network talking about it. Kendrick did his job. But I also get the frustration of Barkley, who in this sense I think was voicing the frustration of the fans of like, guys, we want to hear something as fans. We want to hear about more than just two teams every day.
Exactly.
That's kind of the thing. All right. There's more NBA drama. We didn't even get to Stephen A. Smith and LeBron James. We'll get to that on the other side of the break. And if we have time, a big question as well. Bullpen, ESPN Radio 97.5, 92.5.
This is The Bullpen on ESPN 97.5 and 92.5. Live from the Veritex Community Bank Studios. Here are the producers of ESPN 97.5 and 92.5.
Bullpen is back on 3 segments ago. Mount Rushmore +1 next segment, but we got to continue this talk of the NBA drama this week. Brian McDonald, Cam Smith, John Domer with you. Hit us up on the HRMP listener line if you got any thoughts about this drama or anything we talked about with the Texans or the Astros as well. 713-780-3776. So we hit on the Kendrick Perkins, Charles Barkley drama in the last segment, but that wasn't the only thing going on. We had an on-court confrontation between LeBron James and Stephen A. Smith, which is just wild. Obviously, it didn't escalate to anything serious, but it is still wild that LeBron decided to confront Stephen A. Smith on the court. And as we'll hear in this first clip from Stephen A. Smith, there is what LeBron was confronting him over was apparently this comment about his son, Bronny James.
That wasn't a basketball player confronting me. That was a parent. That was a father.
But come on. I'm not being cruel to Bronny. I'm looking out. Do you want it this way, LeBron? Do you want it this way, Rich Paul? Do you want it this way? He can't go into the G League and average 20, 25 and stay there until he's ready? Because he's LeBron's son, you know how they're going to judge him. And before anybody wants to jump on me, remember, I never saw Bronny James play until he showed up in the NBA and the G League. I refused to watch him because if I watched him, I would have to talk about him. And I didn't want to talk about LeBron James' son because I thought it was so unfair to the kid. He's such a wonderful kid, wonderful family.
So I take no exception with what Stephen A said. Look, and I've got a kid. I understand why LeBron would be super protective of his son, but Stephen A, I thought, took a pretty mild or gave a pretty mild take to what everyone has been saying around Bronny James, and that based upon what he actually did at USC and his high school career and AAU career leading up to that point, he did nothing to deserve a second round pick. We all know that. That is not a hot take. It's also not a hot take what Stephen A said about shouldn't you let the kid earn it, right? Shouldn't you send him down to the G League, make him earn it, make him be a guy that's scoring 20 a night, make him earn the respect of his peers that he's not just a Nepo baby before you. I mean, look, Bronny's had multiple games in the actual NBA playing on the court with his dad, not because he earned it with his college career, not because he earned it with great play in the G League, but just because his last name is James.
Exactly.
And that's exactly what Stephen A said. Like, you're doing your son a disservice because all the people around him are going to be like, oh, he sucks. He's just a Nepo kid. But if he goes out and earns it by playing well in the G League and just incremental, steps up, then maybe he earned the respect of someone that deserves to be in that spotlight. But LeBron, by sheltering him, giving him a second round draft pick or demanding it happen when he didn't deserve it, letting him skip the G League at times and not go on road trips, all you're doing is creating the controversy that we're now talking about it. So yeah. I took no exception what Stephen A. Smith had to say.
No, not at all. Because I think Stephen A. he's not going after Bronny. He's going after LeBron, which he should, because
for creating the circus.
Yeah, I mean, look, you already have enough pressure on you as a kid trying to go from college to the NBA without having a father who played in the NBA. And then you add on the fact that it's LeBron James, one of the greatest of all time. I can't imagine the anxiety and pressure that Bronny James is feeling. One, he should never have come out of USC that early, but we know that his dad probably was a big proponent behind it because he wanted to play with his kid.
100%.
Then on top of that, you get to the Lakers, and like you just talked about, you're only playing in G League games that are in LA that don't make you travel. How does everybody else on that G League team gonna feel when they see that, oh, Bronny doesn't have to travel with the team? Then he gets a spot and he starts playing on the Lakers without proving absolutely anything. Everything is driven behind LeBron. And then LeBron wants to confront somebody courtside because of what he's basically done to his son. And Stephen A said it perfectly. He's like, all these people could have contacted me behind the scenes.
Well, let's get to that clip because that's in our next clip here. So we heard the clip of Stephen A. Smith talking about Bronny James, which led to LeBron James confronting Stephen A. Smith on the court at a Lakers game. Now, this clip is Stephen A. Smith giving his thoughts and reactions to being confronted on the court by LeBron.
That wasn't a basketball player confronting me. That was a parent. That was a father. And I can't sit here and be angry or feel slighted by LeBron James in any way in that regard. By all accounts, he's obviously a wonderful family man and a wonderful father who cares very, very deeply about his son. And based on some of the comments that he had heard, or shall I say, I think he thought he heard, he clearly took exception to some of the things that he heard me say, and he confronted me about it. For the record, his agent and friend, Rich Paul, has my number. Maverick Carter, who works under him, has my number. LeBron James knows how to get in contact with me if he wanted to. He never called, because had he called and wanted to talk to me, I would have accepted that call. Had he wanted to see me, I would have flown out and I would have seen him and I would have had a conversation man to man. But that is not what he elected to do.
Yeah, so I don't see how anyone views the situation as something other than LeBron James being extremely thin-skinned and soft. Like, the idea that you're creating the world's reaction to Bronny James. Like, if you let Bronny James succeed or fail on his own, I mean, people are probably still going to take shots from time to time, whatever. But you're making him, as we talked about early in the segment, Cam, by not letting him, like, make him a second round pick when he didn't deserve it, not letting him go on road trips, getting called up from the G League when he wasn't ready. You're going to create the, oh, look at this Nepo baby. He's only here because of his dad. You're creating that reaction from people. And so you created this reaction, and now you're mad at the reaction that you created. And as Stephen A laid out in that clip that we heard, in which I thought he actually took a bit of a higher road than I would have taken in that, like by talking about the family man and all that. It's like, no, this guy, as you said, his agent has your number. Like, all these people around him have your number. LeBron could 100% could have gotten hold of Stephen A. Smith if he wanted to. There's no doubt in the world. I mean,
100%.
150%. And he chose to go to be performative and confront Stephen A. in the most, like, childish, dramatic way possible, and confront him on the court about a fair comment Stephen A. Smith when he could have handled any criticism he had of Stephen A. behind closed doors with a phone call or a visit. I thought it was immature and childish and thin-skinned and soft what LeBron James did.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing too is Stephen A. said himself, he is a reporter. He is a journalist. That is what he does. He covers the NBA. And he said that he didn't want to talk about Bronny before the NBA, but then when LeBron basically forces Bronny into the NBA, that is in the realm of what Stephen A.'s job is supposed to do.
Yeah, if Bronny James plays NBA games, now Stephen A. has to talk about it.
I guarantee you that if Stephen A. went the other route and was like, no, I'm still going to ignore and not talk about Bronny, LeBron would have an issue with that,
that
too.
as a slight,
there is no win-win with LeBron. And then, again, back to, like, confronting him courtside. All the opportunity to do it out of the cameras, but you literally were like, keep my son's name out of your mouth on national TV in front of Stephen A. You knew that was going to be a story. So you are even more adding your son into the equation that has nothing to do with Stephen A. Like, this is all LeBron causing this.
Yeah, what creates pushback from people, right? Like, having something thrown in their face. And I think what you said there at the end was like, you've already created undue pressure and criticism and conversation about your son by what we've talked about, being a second round pick, skipping the G League, not going on road trips. You've already done that.
Yeah.
And like you said, like, if he had called Stephen A. on the phone, like say, hey, this is off the record, but let's talk about this man to man, I think Stephen A. wouldn't have brought that to air.
No.
I'm sure he's told hundreds of things every week that he doesn't bring to air. But because you did it publicly in a very performative, dramatic way, you've now added all those things that we talked about, like the undue pressure and critique and conversation that you've put on your son for no reason. You've now done that again and amplified it 1,000 times. Like, I don't know what LeBron's end game is here. Like, I get obviously wanting to help your kid. I mean, 100%, everyone does, but you're not helping them. And I think that's what he's not seeing.
You're not. And it's almost one of those things where it kind of takes me back to, like, the ball days with the brothers and the dad,
Alonzo
and all
Ball,
the outlandish and, like, promoting that he was doing. And it's just like, okay, are you really doing it for your son's legacy, or are you doing it for your own legacy? Because we don't see Bronny coming out and talking and, like, making a big deal and talking about how he's LeBron James' son. It's all LeBron talking about Bronny. And it's just like, are you really doing it for the betterment of your son, or are you just trying to continue your legacy of having your son in the league, but it's your son? So it's just kind of like, where are you coming at with this one?
Johnny, are we being crazy here? Which side of this are you taking?
No, I don't think you're being crazy. I think LeBron's being a little soft here. Specifically, his son's in the NBA. He's a professional basketball player now. These guys are going to talk about him. I think part of the anger, and this is just speculation, but part of the anger maybe comes from his son sucking. not being good enough to like if Bronny James was better and he didn't travel, I don't think there'd be a problem. I think if he was better and he was on the Lakers roster, people would be like, oh, okay, he's playing, but we all know he didn't deserve it. He's not good enough, and I think maybe that's part of where that animosity comes from with LeBron.
I could see that. Like LeBron could be feeling like maybe he thought putting him on maybe he thought everything he was doing was going to spark some upper level that Bronny hadn't reached yet, and him not reaching that level is like crap. I tried this, it's all backfiring, it's not working, and now I've got to be super protective dad and like step in and protect my son. But I think what he obviously doesn't get is by doing it publicly and making a dramatic show of it in a very performative way by confronting a reporter on the court, you're not fixing it. You're just magnifying it and making it worse.
Didn't he show some of this animosity as well? Like before Bronny became a pro, it was like a high school game where LeBron like ran onto the court or something.
Yeah,
and
I don't remember the details of that. I remember
he's had other situations like this defending his children before.
And how is Bronny supposed to get better when you're basically having him leave college early, not playing in G League games, and then just going straight against playing against pros? Like, sure, I guess you could look at it as like, oh, he's going to get better if he plays against the best talent. But if you're not ready for it, you're not going to succeed. And so
you're just going to be terrible, and it's going to have your whatever confidence you have is going to be crushed.
How is not playing in just the G League your first year a bad thing? Like you're getting consistent playing time. You're able to work on things that you need to improve on. I mean, I would rather play full time in the G League than sit on the Lakers bench and play 2 minutes every third game.
Yeah,
like
100%. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think obviously it's got to be. I sympathize with Bronny because it's got to be difficult to say like, Dad, you let me do this on my own.
Yeah.
Like I'm sure. I mean, I don't know. Obviously I don't know Bronny at all. Maybe he's 100% behind all this, but I could see even if he's like someone that wanted to play in the road games in the G League, stay down in the G League until he was ready. If his dad, LeBron, one of the greatest basketball players of all time, is like, no, you're going to do it this way. I could see where his son in that situation is maybe not going to speak his mind to his dad in that situation. So it's tough all around. But yeah, I just hated the way LeBron James handled that. All right, enough semi-serious sports drama. On the other side of the break, we got to get to Mount Rushmore plus one, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the best part of your weekend. That's next. ESPN Radio 97.5 and 92.5. Welcome in, Houston, to the best part of your weekend. It is now time for Mount Rushmore Plus One, the award-winning, groundbreaking, sports radio landscape-changing segment that'll add the three of us, and Sean Mapes, even though he's not here, since he was on the creative part of this, in the Texas Radio Hall of Fame, in far less than the 27 years it took John Lance to get there. Are you kidding me? This segment's getting us in 13 minimum, or 13 maximum, that is. Incredible. I mean...
Ooh.
Well, you doubt me, Cam Smith?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Never.
If you doubt me, you're out. I'm gonna have to lay down the law. I took Johnny by
I am in.
Yeah, because like, who gave you the power?
As co-creator of Mount Rushmore Plus One, and the other co-creator is not here. I think I have sole power.
Just
now.
because you're the oldest does not mean that you have the power.
Yes, I am the oldest. Okay, now you brought me down, Johnny. Now you remind me of my mortality. And that we're all hurtling towards non-existence. We're all dust in the wind, guys.
Well,
ESPN Radio 97.5. All
right, time to bring it back up.
Okay, well, let's pick it back up. All right, we're never gonna die. We're living forever. Cam Smith, you want to go first? What is your Mount Rushmore Plus One?
So, due to the rodeo season, I decided to do rodeo performances that I wish I could see that I probably never.
From just this year or just in general?
Just in general.
Okay.
Yeah.
You go to the rodeo a lot?
I go to the cook-off pretty much every year, and then I try and go to at least 1 or 2 shows.
Okay. I might shock you. The last time I went to the rodeo, and I said this on the Killer Bees the other day, and they both looked at me like I had 2 heads, but the last time I went to the rodeo, it was still in the Astrodome.
Oh my!
It was yeah. See, Johnny did a double take. It was the last ever rodeo in the Dome, 2002 for ZZ Top.
But
wow.
You have to really try very hard
flip phone
to not go to the rodeo for that long. You literally have a media pass that can get you into the rodeo at no cost.
That is 100% true. It can't make me not have to deal with the crowds though. And that's part of it. And I'm also not a huge country music fan. Now I probably, and I do slightly regret not going to see Chris Stapleton the last few years when he's been here. He's fantastic. And there's always usually like a rock act, or Bun B, I think was last night. I wouldn't mind to go see that. But yeah, overall, like usually 2/3 of the lineup I don't care about. So
Journey coming up.
Yeah, I don't care about Journey. No,
I like Journey.
I can't stand I can't stand the vocals.
Oh,
yeah. Anyway, all right. You're on Mount Rushmore Plus One. It was acts that you wish you could see at the rodeo?
Yes, that I know I can't see ever again, or probably won't. So in the first 4 in no particular order. The last one is definitely going to be number 1. But I have Pitbull. Pitbull. I would have loved to go see Pitbull.
You don't strike me as a Pitbull guy. You just say you like the Miami party scene. What's going on here?
No, I do like Miami. Don't get me wrong. Fun time when I went.
South Beach Cam over here.
Pitbull's not like my favorite, but I know that he puts on a good show.
Yeah.
And I knew a few people that went to that show and said it was amazing.
I think if I went to that show, I'd want to be under the influence of something. I think that would add to the.
Oh, but of course.
Anyway, go ahead.
After that, Usher, or should I say Ursher?
Yes.
I would have loved to see. I would have loved to see Usher at the rodeo. Then I have George Strait. I would have loved to see George Strait.
So is that never going to happen again?
I think when his last performance a few years ago, I think he said that was it for the rodeo.
Really? Because I know he played the big show at Kyle Field like a year ago, right?
Yeah, he's still putting on like decent sized shows, but I think he said that as far as the rodeo, like that was his last hurrah.
Okay.
Brooks and Dunn, always been a big Brooks and Dunn fan. So I would have liked to see them, and I don't even think they're.
See, I don't know. Like, are they just not playing together because they're both alive, right?
They are, but I don't really hear them. I don't really hear anything about them like performing. So I think they're done. But definitely number 1, Selena. I would have.
I assume you have the tattoo of Selena.
I have a tattoo of Selena, and I have a vintage shirt of actually her face in the jacket that the Astros jacket that she was wearing in '95. So that one, obviously, I would never get to see her perform.
That one is the most definite. You will never be able to see that. The other ones are possible.
It's possible.
Unlikely, but possible. Selena, very unlikely.
Yeah,
unless we get a hologram like Tupac performing. There you go, hologram Selena. Would you go see that?
Because I have
Yeah.
my.
Yeah, you would.
I would.
Yeah, you would. Yeah,
I
you
would. I would.
All right. My Mount Rushmore +1 this week. I've got two choices. I'll let y'all pick. Sports or non-sports?
Non-sports.
Non-sports. All right. So these are defunct businesses that I kind of oddly missed, even though there's no reason to have them around anymore because they're just been completely replaced by technology and the convenience of other things. All right. First on my list, I don't know if you guys will remember this. It was the Netflix of video games, but GameFly.
Yes.
You remember
Oh, yeah.
GameFly?
I do.
See, GameFly was elite for a while because unlike going to a video store, you could keep it for as long as you wanted. And when I got on GameFly, their distribution center was in Austin. So like when you were done with the game and you mailed it back and they mailed you another one, it was like one day out and you would have a game the next day. But then they moved it to they closed down the Austin one and it was in Kansas City and it was like 3 days and then the prices went up. And then we obviously all started downloading video games on our consoles and there was no need for a GameFly. But I do kind of oddly miss GameFly. Something about getting that envelope in the mail. I was like, oh, sweet, I got this to play. The anticipation of it. Whereas now, like, there's no anticipation. It's like download, boom, here we go.
It's like Blockbuster. Sometimes you just miss the good old days of
Next
out
on
that
my
cassette.
list, Blockbuster. Cam Smith. Now, this is for I think distinguished gentlemen of a certain age, like myself. But there was something like you could still kind of do this with browsing through wherever you're downloading your movies, renting your movies from, whether it be like a Fire Stick or a game console, wherever. But there was something unique, I think, about the experience of walking down the aisles, like on a Friday night, Saturday night, just like looking at everything, taking your time, then buying the popcorn or the candy there on the way out. There was the experience, even though like, hey, you're still getting to see the movie at home. Like that part of it hasn't changed. But something about the experience of actually walking the aisles and maybe coming across something you didn't expect or the anger that they're out of some movie you wanted, like that part of the experience you'll never get back. And I do kind of miss that. Next one, I don't know if you guys were, Cam, you might be old enough to have used this. I don't think Johnny was. Although you guys basically the same age. I think you're about close.
I'll be 33 in August.
Yeah,
Cam?
I'm a little older.
Okay, so a little older. I'm not gonna make you say it. Napster. I miss Napster, man. Did either of you guys use Napster?
The music one?
Yeah, the illegal music download that got sued by Metallica.
Yeah, I used LimeWire.
I used LimeWire.
You used LimeWire? Okay, so I didn't use LimeWire. I assume it's kind of the same thing, but Napster basically anyone who had a song could upload it, and then you could link to them and download the song. I assume that's kind of the same thing as LimeWire.
Very similar.
It was basically file sharing, but with music.
Yeah.
And Metallica sued them, and I actually you could actually sign up to like dispute it at the risk of actually being sued by Metallica. And I did so because I had lots of Metallica songs on there, but luckily Metallica never sued me.
The only difference is you had to be very careful about what you opened and where when you downloaded something from LimeWire.
You show right. You show right.
Yeah, there were some things on there. So I oddly miss Napster, even though like now, like I mean, I have to pay for it, but I can get a song so quick through the Apple Music thing. You click on it, 5 seconds later, it's downloaded on my phone. Boom, I'm listening to whatever I want to. But I do miss the magic of Napster. So that was that's 3 of my defunct business. I have so many. I could go for the rest of the show with this. But I'll say on the restaurant side, Bennigan's. You guys were you guys big Bennigan's? Yeah. Man, I think it's mostly their apps that I liked. And maybe that's because of the age I was at the time that I just wanted to eat junk food all day. Not that that's really changed much. But the apps at Bennigan's, like the Irish, I mean, Irish Cam Smith. I'm talking Irish Cam Smith here. The vibes and the decor and the atmosphere. I love going to Bennigan's as a kid.
I loved Bennigan's. I loved the Monte Cristo.
Yeah, my wife got that all the time.
I also got the quesadillas when I was younger. Actually,
the potato skins were elite.
They were good. If I'm not mistaken, Bennigan's was my mom's first job. She was like a server bartender at Bennigan's.
Did she have the flair?
I don't remember. I think this was before I came onto this earth.
Okay.
But Bennigan's was also the place where whenever I saw my dad, that was like on Tuesdays, that was the one place that we would go to.
Mm-hmm.
So when Bennigan's evaporated, I was relatively upset.
Yeah, no, I get it. Like, John, you ever been to a Bennigan's, or is that before your time?
Well, I have been. I mean, I don't remember,
You don't remember it
a
very
lot
well?
about it. Yeah,
Okay,
I
all
must
right.
have been real young.
Last one that I'll put on this list: Radio Shack. Radio Shack was the perfect place for going into, like, if you go into a place having no idea what you need, and all of a sudden you see something there, like, oh, yeah, sure, I'll get that.
Yeah.
It also takes me back to a time. Now, this is really going to age me. I regret to even tell this story, but my first cell phone was like a pay as you go. And I had to go to Radio Shack to like refill the minutes. Like, give them
Oh,
$20,
my.
and they would put X amount of minutes back on my phone.
I didn't know that's how it worked.
Yeah, it was like the olden days of 2003. This is what I'm talking about here. Yeah, I oddly miss Radio Shack. It was like you walk in and there's so many things like the remote control cars and helicopters.
That's what I was going to say.
Tons of stuff you could get in trouble with as a kid. I love going to Radio Shack and just finding the odd little things that you could have fun with.
Yeah, I was going to say it's the remote control cars, and it was after Toy Story when Sid, or when he had the little remote control car, and that's when I started going to Radio Shack and buying those things and building little homemade wooden slants and stuff like that, and just those are
so
good old
much
days.
fun. All right, Johnny Belmer, what is your Mount Rushmore plus one, sir?
Yep, I'm gonna do mine quick here, rapid fire. I went to the rodeo a couple days ago, opening night to see Reba. A little disappointed, by the way.
Oh,
not a big country person, but I was a little disappointed in
okay.
Her performance. But anyways, I did. People forget about the actual rodeo, right? They go for the concert, the carnival.
Bustin'.
Yeah, this is my Mount Rushmore plus one of my favorite Houston livestock show and rodeo athlete names. They've got some very unique
like the names of the bulls?
No, of the actual rodeo cowboys and cowgirls.
Okay.
The bulls was another idea I thought of too, but they don't list those out there very easily, and I didn't write them down when I was there the other night. But I was laughing at them. They're great. No, I went actual athletes here because they've got some pretty interesting names here. Number 5, competing in the bareback riding category from Grantsville, Utah, Bronk Marriott.
Bronk Marriott.
He's riding on a Bronco.
That's a great name.
It is a great name.
That is a great name.
I love that. Competing in the barrel racing category from Pleasanton, Texas, she is Jimmy K. Cox. Jimmy, this is the reason she's on the list. Jimmy spelled Jymmy.
Say that again.
Jymmy.
Jymmy.
Jimmy K. Cox. Well, her last name, it makes it funny a little bit when you say it all at once, but it's kind of a cool name.
Yeah, a girl named Jimmy to begin with, and then to spell it Jymmi. I've never seen Jimmy spelled that way.
The feminine version.
I guess.
Maybe.
All right, what's left here on this list?
Yep, we got number 3 competing in the bull riding from Springer, Oklahoma, Roscoe Jarbo.
Roscoe Jarbo.
That's a hell of a name. That's a hell of a name.
Yes, it is.
I like it.
Number 2, competing in the tie-down ropers category from Itasca, Texas.
Wait, hold on. Itasca? You mean Toscasita?
No, it's called Itasca. I don't know where it is.
Okay. All right.
But from Itasca, Texas, John Tavian Douch.
Douch.
That is.
I wouldn't like that name because that's a little too close to another D word.
Douch.
Yeah.
That's true.
Douch bag over there. Continue.
Number 1, competing in the steer wrestling category from Belleville, Texas. This is my favorite one.
A wrestler at the top. I like it.
Rowdy Parrot. That is
spelled like the bird?
It's spelled like the bird. ROWDY and last name Parrot like the bird. Yeah.
Wow.
Rowdy Parrot. That's not the only rowdy in sports because I think the Brewers have a guy, Rowdy Tellez.
Rowdy Tellez, yeah.
But Rowdy is a very appropriate name for a rodeo.
Yeah, I mean, would you like if you're picturing the perfect rodeo athlete, would you not want someone who's rowdy? You don't want someone who's not rowdy trying to wrestle them steers. Are you kidding me? All right, we're overdue for a break here. Other side of the break, our final segment of the show today, we'll have to get into what we love from sports and what we or the worst people in sports. That when the bullpen returns, ESPN Radio 97.5 and 92.5.
This is the Bullpen on ESPN 97.5 and 92.5. Live from the Veritex Community Bank Studios. Here are the producers of ESPN 97.5 and 92.5.
Final segment of the show today here on ESPN Radio 97.5 and 92.5. It's the Bullpen. Me, Brian McDonald, Cam Smith, John Belmer, and programming note, we will be back next week as long as the Aggies don't have a game that conflicts. Obviously, with March Madness, there could be a conflict there, but we will be on for the foreseeable future unless there's an Aggies basketball conflict. And we'll have some guys that were in the Rock the Mic competition joining us periodically over these next few weeks. So I have that look forward to. But we'll end the show now in the final 5 minutes that we have with our worst people in sports and what we love from sports this week. I'll get to this audio quick here, Johnny. Draymond Green called out Cat for Karl Anthony Towns for apparently ducking Jimmy Butler and missing game. Turns out Karl Anthony Towns missed it because there was a death for a loved one. When Draymond was confronted with that fact and asked, like, do you want to apologize or take it back? Here was Draymond's response.
You seen any reaction today to your comments about Cat?
No.
And are you aware of what the circumstances were?
No. No. What's the circumstance?
Apparently, he said he was at a funeral for a family friend.
Oh man, that's unfortunate. I'm sorry to hear that. That sucks. But my comments that I made was what I heard was this. And that's what I heard. So I do, send my well wishes to him and his family. None of us, it's inevitable. We all experience death in one way or another, and we'll all experience it in the same way one day. So it's unfortunate. You never wish that on anybody, but the Draymond Green show with Baron Davis must go on.
This guy.
Oh, and okay, so the clip is there, like the full clip. So he self-promotes. Like, he started off okay. He's like, "Oh man, that sucks," and my condolences to he and his family. Although he never took it back or apologized. Like, well, that's just what I heard. It's like, well, you heard wrong. But then, as the clip goes on, he does that same thing with the Draymond Green show with Baron Davis will go on. He says that again. He self-promoted twice when given the chance to apologize to Karl Anthony Towns for saying he was ducking Jimmy Butler, when in fact Karl Anthony Towns was at a funeral for I believe it's his girlfriend's aunt is what it turned out to be.
Yeah.
And he self-promoted his podcast twice during this so-called apology. So Draymond Green, my worst person in sports. Cam, who's your worst person?
I mean, I hate to be repetitive because we kind of already touched on it, but mine was going to be LeBron.
Yeah, it was a bad week for LeBron.
Yeah.
Soft. Johnny, your worst person?
Mine wasn't a person. It was an organization, to the Dallas Mavericks for announcing they're going to raise ticket prices this week after what they've done to that fan base.
What do you guys think of the conspiracy theory that the Mavericks owners are maybe trying to piss off fans to the point that they'll accept that they leave?
Mm-hmm. There's some credence to it.
I think there is, like, well, you trade off your best player. There's no reason to do that. And now, right after you trade your best player, you jack up ticket prices by 8%.
Yeah.
The reason, you ask why, Cam? Because the ownership group has strong gambling ties, and they want to be in a state that allows gambling. That's the thought process.
AKA Las Vegas.
AKA Las Vegas.
Or Oklahoma. Well, no, there's already Oklahoma.
There's already a team there, yeah. There's already a team there. There's already a team in Louisiana as well. So, yeah, I don't
Arizona?
I don't think, well, they already also have a team. I don't think it'll happen, but I don't know. Every day that goes by, like, this ticket price thing is like, maybe there's a little credence to this conspiracy theory. But enough for the Anger Sharks. No more swim at the Anger Sharks. We'll instead go ahead and doggy paddle over to the Sea of Tranquility. Deep breath and talk about what we love from sports this week. Johnny, I got audio here. The 76er players, including Paul George, were in attendance for last night's SmackDown in Philadelphia. Got introduced to the home crowd there. And this was the reaction they got voiced here by Joe Tessitore, the voice of SmackDown.
Are the 76ers. We're going to host the Jazz come Sunday, and they have been loving the action ringside. Of course, these Philly fans, you can get a mixed reaction. They have certain struggles during the season.
You can cut it there. Joe Tessitore is such a pro. I mean, that was not a mixed reaction.
No, not at all.
And I think that reaction is largely because Paul George is there and he's far overpaid for how he's played. So I don't even know if it's on the other three people because there's 4 of them in total that were there. But that was not a mixed reaction. That was Philadelphia saying F these 76ers players and the overpaid Paul George. But the pro that is Joe Tesselmore. Oh, so an uneven season and producing these this mixed reaction. Credit to Joe Tessitore. I loved his ability to play that off.
The 76ers got the SmackDown at the
Oh,
SmackDown.
see, all right, see, even without sports entertainment, Sean, we got Johnny over here putting a steer wrestler at the top of his Mount Rushmore. You're making wrestling references. I love it. Wrestling continues. All right, Cam, what did you love from sports?
I love the senior night U of H. Just I guess the whole appreciation for all the senior men's basketball players that have stuck around for 3 or 4 years. Guys like Jawan Roberts and Javier Francis and Malik Wilson.
Was it Jerron Roberts been there for like 6 years?
Oh, he's definitely been there like at least 4 or 5.
Yeah.
But just seeing what those guys have been able to do for the program the last 4 or 5 years, then obviously getting real close with Calvin Sampson, you could see that he was kind of emotional. So it's going to be sad to see all those guys go, but that was what I loved.
Johnny, we got about 30 seconds here. It looks like. What did you love from sports this week, sir?
I thought it was great. Eli Manning eviscerating Caitlin Clark. What was it? 76-51 in Papa Shot.
Wow.
It was just hilarious.
Yeah, Eli Manning, a little bit of a goof, but that is pretty fun. Papa Shot is not basketball, so it's a different skill set, but that is pretty fun. All right. We'll be back next week for Cam Smith, for John Belmer. I am Brian McDonald. Back next week with, I believe, somebody from the Rock and Mike group there that participated a few months ago. Have a great week in Houston. We'll see you next week.